Morning. So welcome back to Out of the Bubble. I first met today's guest at a networking event with the Enterprise Collective. And once I'd been talking to Samantha McNamara about her acupuncture clinic and the facial acupunctures, she kindly invited me along to go and try one out. It's the first time I'd had one, and if you've never had an acupuncture facial, I can definitely recommend it. But what really impressed me was her journey to get there. So I'm looking forward to finding out how Samantha has retrained and started this whole new journey into holistic therapy and acupuncture. So, welcome, Samantha. Hi, Sam.
Hello, nice to see you.
And you. It's lovely to see you on here. How's lockdown looking for you?
Well, a bit of a roller coaster, I think. Up and down times, but I think probably last week just resigned myself to the fact that we're not in control of anything, so may as well just surrender to it. And much better since we've got into a structured routine. So my daughter's doing online school, so we're up at a certain time and meet structured meal times, and then we're doing our daily exercise, and all those things massively help.
Yeah. Are you doing the Joe Wicks PE class in the morning?
We did do the Joe Wicks PE class, but it was really early in the morning to do. So both of us are not morning people, so we get up. I tend to do my workout after my breakfast, maybe like about 11ish, and she did hers this morning at 10. So it's a bit more of a reasonable hour for us.
So to anybody that doesn't know you, how would you describe yourself?
That's an interesting question. I suppose I have different hats. I have my hat where I'm a single mom, and trying to bring my daughter up, run a household, do all of those kind of things. And then I think I have my work role where I'm trying to run a business and just generally trying to make a living, and at the same time trying to offer a really good service to my patients, really. So I think definitely a split role is how I would describe my life. There's lots of different hats.
Juggling,
yeah.
I mean, we first met at the Enterprise Collective, which is a really great networking group for creative people and people with small businesses. And I don't know about you, but for me, I'd always really dreaded doing network events because I always had that syndrome of when you were a kid and no one would talk to you and you'd turn up and just stand there, and almost like imposter syndrome is like, why am I doing here? How did you feel about networking?
Probably very similar, which surprised me really, because in my early 20s, I had a job where I had to stand up and talk in front of groups of people. I was really pushed out of my comfort zone. So I was used to lots of public speaking, and my employer would just drop us into a room of 100 people, and we'd have to schmooze and talk. And when I was part of a brand, I never really had a problem with it. But when I left that career and I became a mom, and then I was just starting out as sort of little old me, just me, I've completely lost my confidence for a while. So I think for the first few years I didn't do any of that. I kind of just hid away, burrowed myself away, and carried on working. So really that was the first proper networking event that I had been to since setting up my business, and my business is 5 years old. So but it was a really lovely experience. So yes, I kind of went into it feeling, I'm really not confident, and I'm not sure how this is going to go, and forgetting the art of conversation and all of that. Really, you're going to be standing on your own. But it felt a little bit like going back to high school.
Yeah, it does. It really does. Yeah. It's good to push yourself out of your comfort zone, though.
Yeah, I definitely felt like I'm ready to do this, because being in a business where you are on your own a lot of the time, it can feel quite lonely and isolating. So although I did have an idea in mind of what I wanted to get out from the event, it was also just to meet other women that you can just have a chat to and say, you know, some things are hard, aren't they? And just even maybe meet a whole network of people that you could socialise with. Because when you're on your own in your business, your Christmas do is a little bit lonely.
Yeah, it's not quite the same, is it?
Yeah.
So you run your own acupuncture clinic and holistic health clinic, don't you? That's not your background originally. So how did you start? You started off in the beauty industry.
I did, yeah. I started off as a beauty therapist, and back then, when I was 17, when I did my training, we covered like a wide range of different things. And I always found that we did nails and we did makeup and that kind of thing, but I always found I gravitated more towards the massage and the aromatherapy, reflexology, health and wellness side of things always really interested me. And then when I was at college, we were really lucky to have, we used to have different companies could come in and do training with us. And this company came in, and I just fell in love with this company. Their whole ethos was about health and wellness. It wasn't about the beauty side of the industry. They weren't talking to women about pampering and treating themselves. They were talking about health and wellness. And the lady who did the training was so knowledgeable that I really thought, right, that's where I want to end up. So the first part of my career was actually, I put a strategy in place of how I was going to get a job at this company. So I knew that they required a lot of experience and they wanted a teaching certificate. So I left home at 18 and headed off to work on cruise liners. So I did that for a couple of years and worked in big hotel groups and all sorts of different ways to gain experience. Then I did my teaching certificate. And then eventually I did move down to Surrey, and I got a job as a trainer with this company they were an American company. It was an English lady that owned it. She moved to America, and she saw that there was a gap in terms of education out there. They weren't trained as well as we were in the UK. So she set up a training school initially. And they were called the International Dermal Institute, and we used to teach, we had about 35 different classes. Some of them were based on skin treatments, things like acne and rosacea. Some of them were based on stress therapy techniques and learning different massage techniques, and some of them were on business, really, and how to run a business and customer service. So I was working for them. They were an amazing company to work for, hugely inspirational lady who runs the business. And I was happily going along with them, building my career. My husband was in the army at the time, and he wanted to make a move up north. So I pitched him the idea of we needed a training school in the north. And so they said, right, okay, then off you go. You set that up. So I set up this training school and had a team of staff. And
what was the brand, by the way? What was the name of the brand?
So the brand, they had the training school first, and then the brand of the product came later, and that's called Dermalogica.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I kind of worked with them during their heyday when they were really booming and growing. And one of the things that I really loved about the company was a lot of the companies in the industry at the time were going after the big hotel accounts and the sort of the big accounts, corporate accounts, whereas our ethos was all about the one-man band, the single therapist. Quite often, you know, they were single parents. Quite often they were, you know, they didn't have the best start in life. So we sort of had that was our target market, if you like. So it was very rewarding to be seeing these small businesses grow, and some of them, what they achieved was really quite amazing. So it was very rewarding, very fulfilling. Lots of travel, lots of international travel. So when it came time to have my daughter, that didn't really work very well. I couldn't jet set up to Los Angeles anymore, so I took a little bit of a break at that point from work, and I think, like a lot of women, when you stop, I suddenly had this massive identity crisis. I was in my mid-30s, and I'd automatically had all of this respect at work, and I think my ego was attached to my title, and all of a sudden I thought, I don't know who I am. I don't know what I feel like I'm not part of a tribe, and I was part of this tribe of amazing women, and like, oh, now what do I do? Where is my tribe? So the business that I have now is not the first business that I set up. This is my third business, third attempted business, and it was really a journey of me trying to discover myself again, as a mum, and who I was as Sam, without this title of Sam, the senior instructor, running a training school. It was a real shock to the system.
I think so many women will be able to resonate with that, and I know I do. In my 30s, after having 3 kids, by the time I was 35, I was like, well, is this it for me? Where am I? Who am I? What do I do next? And it took me till my kind of probably mid-40s to get to where I am now, to think, okay, this is what I want to do now, and this is where I feel most comfortable.
Exactly, yeah. And I had a very similar story with that, and I remember, like we were saying about talking about, was I nervous going to the networking event? I remember being really nervous going to the coffee mornings, with the other mums, thinking, are they going to like me? Coming away thinking, well, I've given her my number, but she's probably got enough friends, and is she going to call? And it was a little bit like dating. That sort of nervous anxiety that you have. So it took me a while to sort of build my new tribe of friends, and I think the first thing that I did is I set myself up working from home, and I had a treatment room. The beauty industry at that time, it was moving into cosmeceuticals, and the Botox injections and filler injections were just exploding onto the market. And there was a lot of money that was being made in those areas, and so it was really attractive to sort of go into those. So I kind of moved and gravitated into that sector of the industry, and I used to go in to businesses sometimes as a consultant, and then I also had my own equipment that I would do treatments with as well. And then a friend of mine, an old work colleague, got in contact, and we decided to set up our own online training school. So we had some training videos, and then we would sell products as part of it. But after a few years of doing that, I just really, it wasn't resonating with me. I didn't like how the message that I was giving to people and giving to women in particular, it was all about chasing youth, and it was this pressure to spend a lot of money on expensive products. Some of them were good and did the job, but some of them weren't, and it just wasn't resonating with me. And after a couple of years of doing that, I really just thought to myself, what do I want? What do I really want to do? And 10 years previous to this was when I'd had my first experience with acupuncture in my late 20s. I was having digestive issues, and I'd gone to have acupuncture, and it was amazing, and it was always an interest. It's always in the back of my mind. But at the time, I had a mortgage. I couldn't see a way forward. I couldn't see how I was going to be able to qualify. So fast forward 10 years, we were financially in a different position. We were comfortable financially, and all of a sudden they decided that they were going to do student funding for a Chinese medicine degree. And so this sort of window of opportunity had opened, and I thought, but I'm going to go and, look into this. And it was quite difficult. Some of my friends in the industry thought I was mad. They thought I was a lunatic. So
So how old were you? How old were you at that point?
I was 37 when I started doing my degree. So my friends are a lot of at that time that were in the industry were earning really good money, and it was very lucrative. And they thought that I was crazy, that I was going to just like leave all this money to go and do something that, if you're going to be an acupuncturist, you're not going to be a millionaire.
Yeah, but I love
you don't do it.
I love the fact that you followed your heart, and throughout this journey, and it has been a journey, you've taken risks and gone for it. And if things haven't quite worked out, then you've learned so much from it and then moved on to the next thing. I do think women in their 30s and 40s are scared of taking that step just in case they fail, because they're worried about what society thinks about the failure. And I just think that's so important to hear a message like yours, where you're trying different things to get to a point where you do finally find the thing that you're absolutely passionate about and works for you.
And I think what it also taught me was at that particular time, because I was married, and quite often our career choices are guided by who is in our life. And I think my husband, he was very money orientated, and I think I was trying to prove myself to him in the marriage, but also proving myself to the world, to what society thought is successful.
Yes.
And especially from coming from I'd worked for a huge brand. I earned a lot of money. We didn't have to think about money when I was working. So it was a big sort of, I was having this shift and change into, it's giving me financial money, but it's not feeding my soul. And ultimately, I couldn't ignore that anymore. I couldn't make everybody else happy or have this. It was a bit like being in a gilded cage. That sort of sense of doing everything for everybody else, and actually what's going to make me happy. So I started on this journey, but 6 months into doing training, my husband just couldn't come along on the journey with me. It was just it was stretching his belief system a little bit too much. And I think he found it really difficult, because I started doing my training, and my first day, I came home and I was full of it.
Yeah.
And over the period of that first year, everything changed. I lost 3 stone in weight. I completely changed my diet, lifestyle, my whole ethos and thinking about life and health and wellness. And it was really difficult for him to watch me go on this journey of changing and becoming happy. I was meeting a new circle of friends. I was literally glowing.
Yeah.
And it was really difficult for him to accept that this was making me happy, and something outside of him was making me happy.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, 6 months into the training, we separated. So that now put me under a lot of financial strain, because I had to move out of my home. I had to move in with my mum and my daughter. So my daughter was only 5.
Right.
So she was quite little, and I needed some support while I was doing the training.
Yeah.
So it wasn't an easy journey.
Yeah.
And it had gone from me following my heart vocationally with something that, we were comfortable financially. I was going to do this a few days a week and be able to really sort of give it my all, to now I'm a single parent, and this has got to be a full-time, living. So it was a real shift and change over those 3 years. But it was strange to see that my colleagues, a lot of people that I was on the course with, I wasn't the only one who had this shift and change. And I think it's because with traditional Chinese medicine, you study philosophy, you're looking at Confucius, you're looking at it's a whole system of healthcare. It's a different way of looking at things, from how your emotions affect you, You're looking at the pathology of disease through the body, so you're looking at how certain symptoms end up manifesting in things like cancer and heart disease, and it's really difficult to have all that information and not make those changes then yourself. Everybody became hypochondriacs and they had everything. But yeah, it was an interesting journey from what I set out for it to be. And ultimately, I really did have to be very brave because I lost everything. I had my whole world changed. I didn't have a nice house. I didn't have a partner. And it was literally starting again.
So you must have had days during that period where you thought, when you really self-doubted yourself, you thought, you know, should I be doing this? Should I just go and get a full-time job somewhere else? Am I making the right decision? How did you get past that?
It was really difficult because I didn't have a lot of support. Although my mum was very good, she let me live there. She let me know that she thought she didn't agree with what I was doing. She didn't believe in it. So it was all a load of mumbo jumbo. And, you know, why would I leave this sort of career where I could earn a lot of money and do something like this? So it was, I had a lot of opposition to begin with. And I guess one of the character traits I've got is I'm quite stubborn. And so I think, whereas in the past, it's maybe not served me very well, in this case, it really did serve me well. So sometimes when the going gets tough, if somebody tells me, you know, I can't do something, I stick my heels in. I'm a bit of a workaholic, so I just head down and thought, you know, well, I am going to prove you wrong.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons why I called the podcast Out of the Bubble, because it's about particularly women in their kind of 30s and 40s, where they do step out of their comfort zone and they push themselves in something that they really believe in. And it's stepping out of that bubble that everybody in society thinks we should be a certain way, but that's not necessarily the case. You can take a different journey and change direction completely if it feels right for you.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that something that I have had to do, and it's something that I still do it all the time, is redefine what is success for me. Because society does say success is the house, the car on the drive, the material status. But you know, I had all of that, and it didn't feel like success for me. I wasn't happy. So I've had to now, you know, think to myself, success for me is having a patient come in pain and have them walk out not in pain.
Yeah.
The other area of women that I really see so much, get so much reward from, is groups of women with hormonal issues. You know, I have women that come in with hormonal issues. Sometimes they'll come in and they'll say, I've got a bad shoulder or a bad neck. When we start talking, we're figuring out that they're actually going through the menopause, and that a lot of the symptoms that they've been struggling, battling with, not talking to anybody about because they think they're going crazy and losing their mind. Actually, this is their hormones. And, you know, I've had so many women that have broken down and cried and said, oh my God, you know, I'm so grateful to have found somebody who can give me this information. So that is success for me now, being able to help people. And success is also being able to be at my daughter's hockey match when I have to be the one that can pick her up from school, and that I can choose my hours, and that really is success now for me. So yeah, I haven't got the material trappings of the lifestyle that I had before, but I am very happy, you know, in my own skin, and I'm happy that I am giving it was worth it. It was real worth it, even though I might only touch, there's only me in my treatment room, and I might only touch a few hundred people, you know, across my year, but for those individual people that I do make a change to,
Yeah.
it has such a knock-on effect. Sometimes they'll come back to me and they'll say, my husband wants to say thank you so much because I'm like a different person.
Yeah. When I came
So,
to you for a facial, acupuncture facial, and it was amazing, and I can't wait to come back to you again because I really did feel so much better for it, and it wasn't at all how I expected it. How does acupuncture work for anybody that doesn't know much about it?
well, acupuncture is a very old system. It's 2,500 years old, but actually it's a very science-based system. It's a system that's based on the nervous system, so it predominantly affects the nervous system. And so once we start placing needles, what it will do is it will switch your nervous system from a hyperstimulated state to a relaxed state. And once you're in that relaxed state, the body can make certain changes. So it has a very regulating effect on the glands in the body. So hormones, it will help to regulate. It regulates the rate at which you breathe, regulates your gastric juices, it regulates the reproductive system. So it has a system-wide effect really on rebalancing everything. I tend to describe acupuncture to our patients a little bit like a car, and we take our car in. Acupuncture is like the service. It's changing the oil, it's putting in new spark plugs, it's making sure that everything is firing on all cylinders and everything's working at its optimal level. And the only caveat to that is that the fuel tank still needs to be filled. So when I do acupuncture, it's about much more than just the needles going in. It's about how are you filling that fuel tank, what food are you putting in, what fluids, how are you moving it, how your thoughts affect how your organs move, help to move the food and fluids through the body. So the system as a whole, we look at.
That's what I was really impressed with, because you did that before we started the acupuncture. You looked at my tongue, you looked at my eyes, and apparently I was dehydrated, and I do drink loads of water, but I was obviously eating and drinking the wrong type of things for the right hydration, and it did make me change, and I drink more coconut water, and I'm trying to be a lot healthier. And I think this move to more of a holistic approach, do you think have you seen a big shift in the last few years away from the cosmetic side to more of a natural procedures?
I think there is definitely a split in society. There are still I think media drives that idea of youth, and as women we've got to be airbrushed and not have lines and wrinkles, and colouring our hair, all of that. It's still very, the media driven is still that image. But I think that quietly there are a lot of women, like we were saying, that maybe hit their 30s and start to question life, and question how they feel about certain things. Maybe people come to me because they've hit a wall with their health, and they're starting to reassess. So sometimes people come to me and they've actually been down the route of trying to do all the things that they're supposed to do, and that hasn't worked, and they come and they've done a lot of research, so that they're aware that there's a lot more that we can do with holistic healthcare. So there is definitely this split between people that are still going for the filler and the Botox and trying to erase time, and then there are the other people that are thinking, actually it's not all about how I look, it's how I feel. But the great thing I think about Chinese medicine is it really encompasses both thought processes, because the way the Chinese think is that health is beauty. If you feel good, you're gonna look good. So it's about if you're sleeping well, a lot of patients come in and, you know, they might say to me they're not stressed, but I'll ask them about the sleep pattern and it's shocking. And they'll say, no, you are stressed, because if you're not getting good sleep, if you're not feeding your body and nourishing it well, if, you know, we don't manage those stress levels, then that will have an effect on how we feel, and then it's reflected in how we look. So by often rebalancing people's sleep patterns, they can look 5 years younger immediately. Yeah. People will say, oh, you look great, you know, have you been on holiday, or, you know, what have you been doing? So yeah, I think of course everyone wants to look their best. We all want to look the best that we can, but the best that we can for the age that we're at.
Exactly. Yeah. And I certainly don't judge anybody for going down any different route, like cosmetic wise, if that's what makes them feel good. But I think it's really interesting that I definitely have started to think much more about the natural route, and just accepting that, you know, I'm going to be 50 next month and I might have more wrinkles. But, you know, I like the idea of being able to have the holistic treatments to try and help me feel as good as I can.
Yeah, definitely.
What about the NHS attitude? Can you get more, do the NHS refer, you know, do you get referrals from the NHS for acupuncture?
There is, you can get acupuncture on the NHS. It's a bit of a postcode lottery, so some areas offer more than others. Just before we went into lockdown, on the 15th of March, the British Acupuncture Council released a documentary which they presented to the Houses of Parliament, and the MPs there were invited to go along to look at the scope of practice of acupuncture. So the documentary looked at how acupuncture is being used in cancer care and with pain.
Oh, right.
It looked at how it's being used for fertility. It looked at how it's being used for anxiety and depression. So it covered a wide range of different ways that it can be utilised. And in the documentary, there's various different consultants that are recommending that the government look at it being integrated on the NHS, especially in the wake of the opioid crisis, really following on from the States, that we're realising that, you know, there is serious consequences to taking the opioids, and we have to have a different way of dealing, especially with pain. And acupuncture has been proven now that there's so much research out there that it's a viable option for, and certainly for pain relief.
Yeah, no, it's really, really interesting. No, it's fascinating.
So we'll see what happens when we get out of lockdown. Yeah, it was just a shame that there was a lot that went into the filming of this. A lot of it was based at York Hospital,
right? Because
we're really lucky. In York is a centre of excellence for acupuncture. We have the research team is based at York, and they've worked for the last 20 years to produce really good quality, you know, randomised control trials, the ones that are accepted. And so it was just a shame, really, that they're always hard work, and then
hopefully it'll get picked up as soon as we're back out of lockdown. How ambitious is your business? How would you like to see yourself grow in the next 5 years?
Well, I suppose going back to that balance that we were talking about of success, I think there are some little demons still in there with my ego that, you know, I was thinking just before we went into lockdown, right, I think I'm ready to grow. I think I want to take on premises, maybe take on staff. And during lockdown, it has given me a really good time to just stop and reflect and think, is that really what I want? Because, you know, it takes an awful lot of energy to do that. And I can tend to be a workaholic and burn myself out. And then I'm no good to anybody, really. So I'm having to sort of really think long and hard about that. I haven't really come out with a resolution to that of exactly what I want to do. But I think at the moment, being a single mom, my daughter's, you know, in a high school experience, and there's a lot of energy that I'm needed, you know, at home. So I think I'll probably just come out of lockdown, I think for a lot of businesses that are service-based, we're all a little bit worried about what's going to happen. So I'm going to just reopen and we're probably going to be forced to take a slow, gradual return. And then I guess that I will just see how this has changed people. It'd be interesting to see people having time at home to reflect on this, and especially because with a crisis like this with a virus, you know, people can feel powerless. But I think where myself and there's a lot of other holistic healthcare practitioners out there, that can be really useful to empower people to say, actually, there's a lot that you can do. And let's come out of this and think about how we strengthen the immune system, you know, and how we can even focus on the lungs, for instance, for a virus like this. So yeah, I'm kind of 50-50.
Well, I just hope that you can get back to it as soon as possible. And it's just been so lovely to talk to you again. And I definitely will be. I'm really interested in coming to you again for not just the facial, but the fact about the hormone balance, which is something that I hadn't really thought about before. But I think anything when you go through the menopause to look at a more holistic approach would be really interesting.
Absolutely. I think I tend to have quite a thorough discussion with my patients about what is right for them. So although I am a holistic therapist, I'm very much about Western medicine where it needs to be. So we'll have a discussion with patients about HRT and whether it's the right choice for them. And even if people go down the route of HRT, that it isn't just job done. You know, the rest of it needs to be sort of put into place. So I really try and tailor that conversation to individuals. Some patients either are contraindicated, they can't have HRT, and some are just completely against it. So it's about working with that individual patient and figuring out what symptoms have you got and what's the ones that are really bothering you, and focusing on trying to, you know, to manage that, and really understanding that it's another big change. It's another transition for us as women. And a lot of it can seem really negative, but because I've gone through it myself, I've had an early menopause, so going through it myself, I've really there wasn't a lot of positive when I was going through it. I was thinking, this is awful. But I think, you know, what I decided to do was reframe it for myself and say to people, you know, let's think of this as a time where you can do a bit of a life audit. And you can ask yourself, what's worked for me so far? So for me, I'm coming up for 45, I can say, so I've lived 45 years of life doing it this way. What's serving me? What's working for me still? And what do I want the next 45, let's hopefully I'm blessed with that, to be like. And if you just sort of reframe it for yourself, then that's a better way of looking at it, rather than thinking, you know, it's awful and depressing and
and that's it, the end of everything as you know it. And so there's nothing else to look forward to.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, that's definitely an area that I'm thinking about doing either a workshop or maybe a podcast even on that's a whole subject in itself.
No, I'm really interested in that. Well, I've got my last 3 questions that I ask everybody, Sam. So the first one is, what song or piece of music inspires you or motivates you?
Depends what I'm doing. So yesterday I was doing weight training, which I'd really love to do. Another thing that I've learned I've got to do in the menopause is lift weights. I love how it makes me feel, but I've got to listen to Beyonce when I'm doing it. Full blast. So yeah, definitely if I'm doing sort of a workout, but otherwise I really like classical music. We listen to a lot of classical music.
It's calming, isn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, it can be, and also a teenager in the house, it can be I can end up listening to her music and find myself singing along. So yeah, quite eclectic with my music choice.
Lovely. What about a book that's inspired you?
A book?
Yeah.
Books. Well, I suppose one thing that I have been doing this year is the journaling. Is something that you hear you should be doing journaling, but I hate journaling. I hate it. I don't know what to write. I've never been able to do it, but I actually bought, a friend of mine and I bought myself this book called Moonology in January, and I've only picked it up in lockdown. How terrible is that? I bought it because look at the cover, isn't it just beautiful? Yeah. It goes in my lounge, it looks lovely. But actually, it's really great because it tells you all about the moon cycles. It talks to you about how to journal. So sometimes it'll just give you a page where you can write exactly what you want, and then it will give you guided questions as well to do. So I'm really loving this at the moment because it's a combination between a book that's got loads of helpful hints and tips, loads of different websites that you can go and visit. And at the same time, it's sort of an action-based book as well. You can write stuff down and feel sort of really productive. I told you I'm a workaholic, so I really find it really hard to just sit down and just read book fiction. So it has to be productive.
I get you there. I find it really hard to switch off. I'm always thinking about different ideas, things I want to do. So that sounds a really good way of trying to get into journaling. I shall have a look at that. And what about who inspires you?
Well, definitely the first company that I worked for, the lady who's the owner of the International Dermal Institute, she is hugely inspirational. Her name's Jane Werwins, for any of you listeners that want to go and have a look at her journey, because she's an amazing woman. And she built a business from scratch, but she's also a real woman's woman. She's always championed women, and she still does now, even though she has sold the business. She runs a foundation now called Found in Los Angeles, which helps women, particularly women that have maybe come from difficult backgrounds, a lot of domestic violence. She'll help them set up a business. So she's got a real entrepreneurial spirit to help women. So she hugely still inspires me. I still follow her. An amazing woman. And I think this journey that I've gone through from my late 30s to where I am now has also taught me to not always look outside of myself for inspiration as well. I think what I've learned to do is develop my own self-mastery and my own ways of motivating and inspiring myself, which is really important to do when you're working on your own. So I think other women in business I can definitely be inspired by, and the group that we go to, there's a load of people you can be hugely inspired by, but I always try and balance it with trying to think that I have got the ability to create my own inspiration, my own motivation, which is important. I think that you don't lose your identity.
I love that. I love that answer. That's just so, because nobody said that before, and you're so right. Yeah, you can't just. It's brilliant to have people that inspire you, because it does help with your creativity and the way you feel about each day. But to be able to know that it's there in yourself is, you're right, so important.
Yeah. Well, it didn't come easy. That was a long road of me, going down paths of following certain leaders and certain gurus and certain belief systems, and then becoming quite disillusioned that behind them all is just a human being. And so actually that was a long path to get there.
Well, keep on going on this path, because you're doing a brilliant job, and I'm looking forward to coming to visit you again and hopefully see you at the next networking event with everybody. So take care and keep well, and lovely to talk to you today. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was lovely to talk to you. Thank you so much. You're looking great.
Thank you.
Your skin's glowing.
One last thing, if anybody needs to find out about you, where can they find out about your website? What's your website
So
details?
I have my website, which is www.the-acupuncture-place.co.uk. I've got a Facebook account, I've got an Instagram, I've got quite I put a lot of stuff on my Instagram.
You do really good videos on your Instagram. I've watched quite a lot of them. They're really interesting.
Yes, yeah. I mean, that's pushing yourself out your comfort zone. I think, you know, I quite often I put things up, and then about a month later I'll think, oh my God, I hate my voice on that. I'm going to delete that. Why did I say that? So yeah, there's randomly things that will appear and then sometimes disappear, and you know, I'm having a down day.
Well, thank you very much, and take care of yourself in lockdown, and hopefully see you at the other side of it soon.
Yes, you too. Pleasure talking to you.
And
See you soon.
thanks a lot. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.